think this chair is really nice for you. Here? I think I can stay here and you can stay. I can have a dialogue. You can stay in the middle if you wish. All right, so thank you everyone. I want to make sure that we can start the event if everything is fine, if the micro is working, if the cameras are working. If something does not work, let me know and send me a secret signal and I will adjust. Thank you for waiting. We appreciate that you have been waiting for us. I will introduce our guests and then we will start the meeting. Okay? So, welcome everyone. My name is Timothy Brick. I'm director of Kyiv School of Economics, and this is my pleasure and honor to meet our guests. The Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Sweden, Ulf Kristersson. Thank you very much for attending our university. Ulf Kristersson is a Swedish politician who has been serving as Prime Minister of Sweden since October 2022. He has been the leader of the Moderate Party since October 2017, and he has been a very famous politician of his nation, and he served as a member of parliament for many years. And we're also honored to welcome the ambassador of Sweden to Ukraine, Mr. Tobias Thyberg, who before that had an appointment as ambassador of Sweden to Afghanistan, and he had many important diplomatic positions in Moscow, Washington, D.C., New Delhi, and Brussels. Also, I think our students would love to learn that our guests also have degrees in economics and political science, and we can talk as colleagues today. For my introduction, I want to say repeatedly again and again that we are very honored to have you here, and I want to say as a citizen of Ukraine that Ukraine is very grateful to your nation and to your government for your support. Sweden has supported Ukraine for many years, before the war as well. We received a lot of your support, institutional, and in terms of research and in terms of policy advice. You have supported our democratic change, local governance, gender equality, a lot of good social causes and public health. So many things were supported and pioneered by the Swedish government. And specifically, after the war, after the full-scale invasion started, the total amount of Swedish aid to Ukraine since February 24, 2022 is 900 million euros, with a record-breaking package of military and humanitarian aid to Ukraine. And as you mentioned in your conversation with the President Zelensky, that Ukraine is a key priority for the Swedish EU presidency, and we are very grateful for that as a nation. And I want to remind to our guests, of course, it's obvious to you, but this place is a university. We're the sanctuary for education or for science, and we have very strong ties with the Swedish academic community. Torbjörn Becker, I want to mention him. He's the director of Stockholm Institute of Transition Economics at the Stockholm School of Economics. He has supported us a lot with generators, blankets, but also with his wisdom and teaching, and he has been on our board of directors for years, and we're very grateful to him. And with all that support, I want to mention that we became stronger, we developed some capacity, and this institution provided help to Ukrainian nation as well. Our charitable foundation was able to fundraise more than $45 million from the beginning of the war to provide aid and to provide help to others. We helped to rebuild a clinic in Makariv. We are helping schools with generators and bomb shelters. Our researchers are working on research on sanctions and damages to Ukrainian economics, and our students are able to study here in bomb shelters. And I think the way your government has helped us to build this capacity shows that we now are able to give it to our government, to nation as a support. So again, I cannot emphasize it. Thank you so much. And I want to give floor to you to give some welcoming remarks. And after that, we can jump into the conversation with students. So please.
Thank you so much. And extremely briefly, first of all, sorry for keeping you waiting. I have to blame your president and your prime minister for having so extremely interesting conversations. So that took slightly more time than I expected. I'm sorry for that. And I also have to tell you, I'm an economist myself. I did not study at the Stockholm School of Economics, but I did study at the University of Uppsala. And in Uppsala, we obviously think Uppsala is the best. If you ask the students at the Stockholm School of Economics, they would not agree. But I did visit, a few years ago, I visited the Stockholm School of Economics in Riga, in Latvia. And I met your colleague, and I asked him, can you say that this school is kind of a small version of the Stockholm School of Economics? And he said, well, yes, you could say that. We are obviously different because here in Riga, he told me, we don't have any research. It's only pure education. So that is one difference. And then he waited and said, well, and we have another difference. We have still not given up mathematics as the foundation for economics. Because he thought that in Stockholm we have done that because we don't understand mathematics any longer. So, well, I'm basically here for two reasons. The first is, of course, that in Sweden, we are extremely committed to what you are doing in Ukraine right now. We share your conviction that Ukraine needs to win this war, Russia needs to lose this war, and we really try to do everything we can to help and to not only in words, but also in deeds and in military terms as well. And we have discussed that in detail today with your president. So that is one reason, because I think you really need to see for yourself. It's one thing to be in Zoom meetings or to read articles. You really have to be here yourself. And I'm extremely grateful for this opportunity. And the second reason is, of course, the European Union. Right now, Sweden is the presidency. You know, we have 6 months for presidency. That means you lead all the meetings, basically, in a very kind of a logistical way, but you also have the opportunity and the responsibility to try to find common denominators. So these 6 months, we stick being Swedes, of course, but we also try to be the ones negotiating common ground, finding common solutions. And since I do hope that Ukraine is one future EU member, as soon as possible, basically, then you will find that when you gather some 27 or 28 countries, you will find some differences. And when you need to be united, then you realize a lot of negotiating work you have to do to be able to find a solution that everybody can accept. Very rarely the perfect solution, but in best case, a useful solution. And that, I would say, and I will end there before we take questions, that is my key observation for these past 12 months, that unity is key. Unity is, you simply cannot over-exaggerate the importance of unity. The day before the war, I was actually in Helsinki discussing with the Finnish president, and we were both afraid of the coming war. We did not know that the day after would be the invasion, the full-scale invasion. But what we both really were afraid of was disunity. European Union countries being divided in different topics, not being able to cooperate on sanctions, not being able to cooperate on how to support Ukraine. And we were extremely worried that the European Union countries and the United States would go different paths. And that worry obviously has not happened yet. And that is very good, because without this unity, we would have no chance on being so stable and so committed in this. And obviously, I realize that you need much more than we can provide. And I always tell my Ukrainian friends, don't be shy. We understand why you ask for everything we can have. Fighters, tanks, whatever, because we understand that you need it. And we need to have an open discussion on what we can provide you with as well. So I'm extremely happy to be here in a very, very bad time, and I'm very impressed that you really plan for the future. You do help right now, and I met the military students downstairs as well. But this is also the future for Ukraine. I really wish you the best of luck in a very tough time. Thank you.
Thank you for your very kind words and for mentioning unity and that you don't shy away from topics like providing help, military as well. So we can start the conversation with students. I would kindly ask if you have a question, you can raise your hand. And if you want to ask a follow-up question on the second topic, you can just raise your finger. We will make sure that the microphone will be delivered. So we have one gentleman here. And raise your hand, and please, can you raise your hand again so you can get the microphone? Introduce yourself, and I would also ask you to speak only when you have a microphone for the quality of our audio recording. Thank you.
Okay, hi, my name is Mikhailo. I'm a master's student in business and financial economics here, class of 2023. And I have a non-economics related question, because I am myself an international relations bachelor's ex-student now. So my question is, amid Russia's crumbling regional power image and Sweden's accession to NATO, hopefully coming very, very soon, which would break the non-alignment clause status since, 1814, which is it's a very, very long time ago. What is the consensus among the Swedish political and security elites on countering future, now revanchist, Russian intentions in the region? Specifically from you, I would like to know, given the information that you personally possess, I'm not asking you to disclose it, but given the information you possess, what would be the main weaknesses in the region, in the Baltic, Nordic region, vis-a-vis Russia within the next 5 to 7 years? Thank you.
Interesting. Well, first of all, just to state what I hope is obvious, that we want to join NATO. And of course, for Sweden, this is a big thing. I realize and I admit it's a bigger thing for Sweden than for the rest of the world. Because us have been non-aligned or neutral for 200 years. That was our choice, not the rest of the world's choice. And you could say that helped us through the Second World War. You could say that. You could also say that we made ideology out of something that should not be ideology. And suddenly, through the full-scale invasion, we realized that this threat is really for real. This is nothing theoretical. You can't be neutral between evil and democracy. And that suddenly became so obvious for Swedish people that NATO was the very, besides from trying to help you, NATO was the obvious answer for Swedish security policy solutions. But I also want to state, which I normally state when I meet other NATO allies, that we are not only seeking NATO membership because we need the protection. We do, and we admit it. But we also think that we are able to provide security for others. Honestly, we have capabilities in the air, which your president is eager to stress. We have capabilities below the surface in submarines, and we have quite a few others as well. In surveillance, for example, radar. So we are pretty technically skilled, and I would say the combination of Sweden and Finland covering the Baltic Sea is almost an ideal add-on to NATO's present skills. So I do believe that we add things to NATO, not only borrow abilities from NATO. So I think that's important to say. And now we don't know how rapid this accession will be. It's very unclear right now. Though I still believe that we are more secure now than we were before, because 28 out of 30 NATO countries have already said yes to us and acknowledge us as a future ally. So I think that's a better position. And obviously, Russia knows that as well. Russia knows that we are on your side. Russia knows that we have applied for membership. Russia knows that we are helping you to fight them. In that sense, it's a sensitive situation for Sweden and Finland. I mean, it goes without saying. So I realize that. I won't disclose any weaknesses, of course. And basically, I think that Sweden and Finland together have very few weaknesses in terms of complementing NATO, actually. But of course, all the Russia, you know that better than anyone else, all the countries neighboring Russia or being in the immediate neighborhood of Russia realizes how dangerous these times are. So we don't underestimate anything of the risks right now, but what we do believe that the biggest risk there is of course that Russia realizes that they can win a war of aggression. That would be the overwhelming risk for everybody. So what you are doing, when we say that you are fighting our war, it's not only politeness, it's not only a word of support, it's literally that you are fighting a war that we realize that we could be forced to fight as well.
Thank you. I see a follow-up question and then the second question, but please make it short.
Yeah, my fault. I was.
No worries. It's going to be a very short one. So, I've done some research on Wikipedia with regards to your foreign policy, so that's why I'm asking the question.
Great.
But this one is really brief. So, Putin, back I think in May, June, stated that he does not have a problem with neither Finland nor Sweden joining NATO, if that does not imply staging NATO troops. I think he is alluding to American troops, to be more precisely, but whatever. He stated that he is okay with Finland and Sweden joining NATO as long as those troops are not staged there. But there's Baltic country, which used to house 1,700, I'm sorry, special forces operators from the US. Do you think now, again, amid a Russian crumbling powerful image, powerful in parentheses, will they do anything if, let's say, you decide to stage troops in Sweden?
Well,
this is a hypothetical. So.
Yeah, it is. I mean, when you become a member of NATO, you do become a full-scale member without any strings attached. So then we have said that in peacetime, we don't see any reason for Sweden to have permanent troops or nuclear weapons on Swedish soil, but we don't have any limits of our membership in NATO. So if they don't see any problems with that, with us being members of NATO, that's a good conclusion, because we won't threaten them. I mean, nobody's threatening them. That is important. They are threatening neighbors. We are not threatening neighbors. So for us, this is only a question of defense, nothing else. My impression right now, they are not counterworking, they're not countering our future membership. They are spreading a narrative that is aiming to complicate things. They like disunity, they like diversion within countries and between countries. We have seen that in other democracies, and they spread the narrative of disunity in Sweden, for example, between population groups. Right now, people are burning the Quran, and they spread the narrative that groups are fighting each other, things like that. They like disunity and they like divergence. So, yeah.
Thank you very much.
We have a girl in the second row. Please introduce yourself.
Thank you very much for coming to Ukraine. It's great importance that our country is supported for all world. And it's a great honor to be here. My name is Anastasia Rybalchenko, and I'm a student of law in Taras Shevchenko National University of Kyiv. And my question is, there's a situation that Turkey is not thinking that some Scandinavian countries, like Finland, can become members of NATO. And if there will be a situation that Turkey would say that we can agree that Sweden is a member of NATO, but not Finland, what would you do? That's my first question. And my second question, once I wrote an article about the constitutional law of Ukraine, Sweden, Finland, and the United States about the martial law, the state of martial law. And I wrote that your law wrote that there are some decisions that Riksdag only can make in that situation, and you as a president only if the troops would be on the territory of the Sweden. What do you think? Should the Riksdag make some changes in this act, and should they specify your abilities? Because in my opinion, it's not easy to rule your country in that hard situation if the Russian troops is there. What's your opinion about that? Thank you.
Yeah. Well, first of all, on Turkey, I mean, basically we have an agreement on being invitees to NATO that happened in Madrid last year. So Sweden and Finland are invitees, also from the Turkish point of view, so to speak. So that's important. And then we have this trilateral memorandum describing pretty much in detail what Sweden and Finland is supposed to deliver on in terms of fighting terrorism, in terms of cooperation for security in Europe, and things that we appreciate as well, and we are delivering on those items. So for me, there is no reason for Turkey not to ratify Sweden and Finland. And Finland is now stating that they want to be ratified together with Sweden. Had we had the situation the other way around, I would say the same thing. We want to be ratified together because just have a look at the map. It's obvious that Sweden and Finland should join together because we create a kind of a the full capabilities together. So, but we also have to admit that only Turkey can make Turkish decisions. You need to have 30 out of 30 ratifications. Now we have 28, and we need the final 2 as well. And they ratify country by country. So I do hope they will do this, hopefully before the Vilnius summit in July. But I'm humble in this case. It's Turkey make Turkish decisions. We think they have good reasons to ratify us. And unfortunately, right now they have very big other concerns to think about, literally, after the earthquake. And we are doing everything we can to help also in that very horrible situation with tens of thousands dead right now in Turkey and Syria. So I'm afraid I have to leave the Turkish decision making with Turkey, honestly. The martial law, I realize now I'm a simple economist. I should know more about martial laws in Sweden than I do. I'm afraid you know more right now. Perhaps I can ask some of my fellow in my team because we basically have a few steps, you know, in terms of when you mobilize and things like that the government has to make decision making on, and then we have legislation that is actually in force after mobilization. But I'm afraid I don't have the details on whether the government's decision-making capacity is big enough or if we have things to learn. One thing I did learn, I appointed the very first Minister for Civil Defense when I appointed the cabinet a few months ago, and that was honestly, I had not done that without the experiences from Ukraine. Because it was so obvious that a lot of things that are important to be able to cope with the war and to have the resistance is not only being conducted in uniform and with weapons, but also in resilience in terms of civil capabilities. And your experiences from Ukraine were very important for me appointing a separate minister for civil defense.
Okay, thank you. I just realized I have a blind spot for this area, so if you want to ask a question, please move your arms very actively, so I will notice you. And we have a lot. I know that the gentleman in the back row has been waiting for a long time. Then you, and you as well. Thank you for waiting.
Hello, my name is Alexander. I'm a student of Kyiv School of Economics, Public Policy and Governance, and I want to hear your thoughts about some our internal tensions. As you know, of course, Ukraine is a very tough time, and we should do tough decisions. We should balance between tough answer to Russia and to maintain like freedom of beliefs, freedom of rules here in Ukraine. And Russia was not only external against Ukraine, also internal here in Ukraine. They built for decades here in Ukraine local branches of pro-Russian activists who spread propaganda on our lands, and this is Russian Orthodox Church. And what you will see if Ukraine will restrict Russian Orthodox Church, because we see it like a terroristic organization who works against Ukrainian sovereignty. And some people thought that it will be like attack on freedom of beliefs and will stop Ukrainian Euro integration. What do you think about it? And what your thoughts? How your colleagues from European countries will saw on restriction of Russian Orthodox Church here in Ukraine?
Thank you. That's a very important, very difficult question. And just let me first say, I'm not in a position to give you pieces of advice. Honestly, I think you are in a very tough position, and I think you deal with it in a very good way. So I'm really humble in that. But a few more general remarks. The first of all, a good democracy tries to respect all the democratic institutions also when you are in very complicated and dangerous situations. That kind of constitutes a good democracy. But everybody realizes that that doesn't go without limits. Of course, you have to protect your security. You have to have national security interests as a focus, obviously. And that may lead you to restricting things that you would not restrict otherwise. I think that goes without saying. And for example, the risk for spreading rumors or the risk for disinformation, we see that in Sweden as well, in a quite severe way, and we are not at war. So I mean, they really provide a big risk for society, not least when you have been invaded. I'm married to my wife is a priest actually in the Lutheran Church, and I know from very many Christians in my country that there are very big objections to how the Russian Orthodox Church is acting right now. I'm not a specialist in religious affairs, but I fully understand that many people distrust the messages from the Russian Orthodox Church.
Thank you. We had many questions here, but I remember that these two ladies are waiting for a long time. So maybe we can start with you in the center.
Yeah.
And again, apologies for not taking this row.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Anna Kryzhanivska. I am the first-year international law student of the Institute of International Relations of Taras Shevchenko National University of Kyiv. And here is my question. So we all spare no effort to really think of ways how Ukraine can win this war and how the whole world can help us. But in your opinion, how ideally or like in the best way can we guarantee that Russia will be punished after our victory, and how other countries shall be protected from some further common issues with Russia? Which safety tools or instruments can be guaranteed to Ukraine and other European countries to feel safe and protected in the future? Thank you.
Yeah, first, of course, I stress that through winning this war, Ukraine needs to win this war. That is the kind of the foundation for everything else. Having done that, the need for accountability. Russian decision makers and those in the Russian armed forces that commit aggression of war, they have to be prosecuted and held accountable. That should be courts taking care of that. Different courts for different crimes. But this is extremely important. I met your general prosecutor. Your general prosecutor this morning. That is extremely important work, and there are many different countries that are thinking about this right now, how to establish the best, most efficient, and most reliable, most respected way of actually prosecuting those responsible for war crimes, basically. So that's extremely important. And part of that is also how to use those Russian frozen assets that exist around the world. In my case, of course, primarily within the EU. Today, literally today, there is a decision made in Brussels where a leading Swedish diplomat is from today heading the ad hoc group examining exactly how much money is there, really. You know, there are many figures flying around about how many billions of euros or dollars are there in frozen assets, so we can agree on the sums and what judicial what laws should be applied, how can we agree on what is legitimate, what is in accordance with international law, and how could those money be used for reconstruction, for many different things. And I think there is a huge need for international agreements on that. So I think there are many things to happen, but it will start with the resistance, with the help from other countries, and it needs to start with Ukraine winning this war.
Thank you, and I'm very happy to see students from Shevchenko University, which is my alma mater as well, so welcome. And we have one gentleman in this area who also wants to ask a question, so go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Ivan, and I'm a student of KSE in Big Data program. So I have a question about, in our days we see that a lot of countries like NATO, United States and others are really afraid of helping Ukraine like in military way with jet fighters, with long-range rocket systems, in case Putin has a nuclear chantage. So don't you think that the only safe way to guarantee borders of your countries is to have a nuclear weapon?
If I consider the only way of safeguarding my country is to have nuclear weapons in Sweden or Swedish, well, yes and no. We don't have any plans for ourselves to develop or to obviously to have nuclear weapons in Sweden. We don't. I think that's very well known among allied partners. On the other hand, we fully realize the importance of the nuclear umbrella within NATO. I mean, that's obvious. It's very much against all these thoughts of friendly democratic states downgrading or abolishing the capabilities of nuclear weapons and allowing only the bad guys to have them. I mean, that would be a disaster. So in that term, the nuclear umbrella is a necessary part of the NATO worldwide strategy. And when you join NATO, you also accept and appreciate that that umbrella exists. So I think we don't have any national doctrine or domestic nuclear doctrine, so to speak.
Okay. Thank you. So, wow, so many hands. I think for some diversity, let's go to the back part of your area, and then we will come back to the front. So don't worry, I see you all.
First of all, thank you for your support. I'm Denis Sidorenko, a student of Kyiv School of Economics. and my question is quite obvious, but it's important to Ukraine. So what Ukraine should do to attract investments from Sweden, and what role of Ukraine will be in European Union in economical sense?
Well, investment from Sweden, I met Scania, you know, the truck producer, the big global truck producer today. They don't produce here, but they service here, and they provide them for sale here. What I've understood, and I have also friends who have had subsidiaries in tech industries in Ukraine, they all say that this is a great country for business. Everybody says that. It's from a Swedish perspective, it's very nearby. It's easy to come here. Well-educated people, very easy to make business with. I mean, all these kind of preconditions that makes a city a good kind of business partner. So I think you have all the good preconditions for that, basically. In terms of EU, as you might know, Ukraine is a candidate country. That's important. And we had a discussion with President Zelensky at the European Council just a few days ago on that. And the formalized process is like this. There are 7 criteria set up by the Commission for Ukraine to, so to speak, to take care of and to improve before coming further in the integration process and before starting the accession talks about membership. And everybody's very impressed by the speed of these progress, not least in spite of a war ongoing. It's unheard of doing so much progress while you are in the object of a full-scale invasion. So everybody's very impressed. Nevertheless, the key words are always a merit-based process. Most countries in the EU are very afraid of cutting corners. They want to be very sure that countries that actually start negotiating talks and finally eventually ends up as a member, they should be ready for the membership in all senses, in terms of democracy, in terms of rule of law, in terms of economic facts and figures, in terms of transparency and all these things. And that is important for all the other members. Having said that, there will be a formal kind of a report during our presidency on how are the developments going on in terms of these 7 criteria. And then this fall, there will be a more formalized feedback process. And the Ukrainian hope is obviously we want to start these negotiations for membership this year. Or as your president said, this year I mean 2023. Nobody could misunderstand the message. And nobody can promise that. But we are quite a few countries that really wants to stress the importance of acknowledging the progress and starting the process as soon as is possible, with the aim of having Ukraine as a full member as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So we can return to the front row. So please.
My name is Yana. I'm a fourth-year international law student in the Institute of International Relations and the intern at the Office of the President of Ukraine. And I have 2 questions for you. The first one is with regard to Ukraine's accession to future accession to NATO. The experience of Sweden and Finland has shown the legally non-binding nature of the membership action plan. And I was wondering whether you think that such a facilitated procedure that does not include this membership action plan could also be applied to Ukraine in the future. And the second question is with regard to the establishment of the special tribunal. It is already now known that Sweden is ready to join the implementation of peace formula of the President Zelensky, in particular in the sphere of accountability and in the sphere of the creation of this tribunal. As for now, there are several models, as you have already mentioned, of how this tribunal could be created. The two main ones are the establishment of this tribunal on the basis of multilateral treaty, and the second one is the establishment of it on the basis of UNGA resolution. And I was wondering whether you could share your vision on what would be the best way possible.
Well, very insightful questions. First of all, in terms of NATO, in Sweden we are not to be over-formalized, but we are slightly reluctant as a non-NATO member yet to have any views on how even further countries should be members of NATO. I think that's a question for NATO allies, and we hope to be that very soon. And when we are, we appreciate the open door policy from NATO. But obviously, it's a question for decision making among existing NATO countries whether to bring in another one or not. And as you know, that needs unity in the decision making process. I think the accession plan works in the sense that we were invitees, and we as we in Finland and Sweden say, we are securer now than we were before. But still, everybody respects the fact that you need to have the ratification from each and every ally, and that's you simply cannot go around that. So you need to show the full respect, and that's the reason we're so keen on not only telling why we want to join because of the situation, because what's happening to you right now, but also keen on stressing what we can offer NATO, because every new country as a member also provides a new risk, obviously, and that risk has to be balanced by the qualities you bring into the alliance. So, but I'm very self-confident in that sense, that I'm very sure that we will bring much more than we will, so to speak, cost. But every country has to agree on that before we can enter. Well, I'm afraid you are more skilled than I am to really tell the differences between the different alternatives, or how to complement different courts for different crimes. When I got the insights today from the general prosecutor, I realized that very many of these crimes should be prosecuted in Ukraine, according to Ukrainian law. And then you have a few crimes that simply are not possible to go to court with if you don't have the international frameworks for it. But as I said, I'm a simple economist. I don't know all these different frameworks right now. But there seems to be a huge international interest to create the necessary frameworks for being able to handle all these complicated cases.
Okay, thank you. The sad news is that we can have only one final question before Prime Minister leaves. In academia, we have this trick when you can quickly collect all questions, but you can answer to only one of them. So I just want for students to have this opportunity to raise their voices. So please just ask very quickly a question, but Prime Minister will not answer to all of them, okay? So please...
My name is Artem Kucherov. Your Excellency, in your opinion, in what year Ukraine will become a full member of EU, and in what year Sweden will become a full member of NATO? Thank you.
Okay, it was a quick one.
Okay, my name is Yuri Patrick. I'm a student of the same university as my colleagues. So my quick question was not only as a prime minister, but as to economist, because I am not only a student of this university and also Stockholm School of Economics in Riga, and you said that they pay attention for mathematics. So as we have no time, what should we pay attention as economists?
Okay, and maybe I have one more quick question, and that's it.
Okay, thank you. So my quick question will be, what is the future role of Sweden in economically reintegrating Crimea to the Ukrainian and European economic area?
No. Well, due to some extent due to simple ignorance, I will avoid one question. To some extent due to my cautiousness as the presidency, I will avoid the question of exactly when the Ukraine will be a part of the European Union. But you can ask me in 6 months' time. So I think I go for your question. My favorite experience actually after quite a few years in politics and being an economist, I would say the combination of public policy and economy is of great importance. Too many economists are simply too much into pure economy. They don't understand the world around them. And too many people in social sciences, in public policy only, they don't realize the importance of economy. You have to be able to count as well. You need the Excel sheets as well. You don't only need all the words. But when you know the Excel sheets, you have to be able to express yourselves also in words. And can you express yourselves also in music and in arts? That's even better. So the combination and the kind of the more Renaissance way of thinking, I think is absolutely the best possibilities combined. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you all for your participation.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Good luck.